But yeah, I've just said, privileged to be here today. Carl and I often sit reflecting on the stories of many, many years of being a part of Kingsgate Church, part of this family. Rod said earlier, a Sunday is the highlight of his week. Being here is the highlight. For us, for many, many years, being here every week has been the highlight for us. We've got so many stories that we talk through. We've all shared many tears. We've shared lots of laughter. And I remember hours in the green room there praying. I remember lots of moments of worship, encountering God together. Lots hasn't changed. All Saints, All Souls. That's November, December. That's a running thing going on there. But and even planting out as the mission, that was a Kingsgate adventure. You sent us, we were sent from Kingsgate. So even the last year of establishing ourselves as the mission church has been part of Kingsgate. This is extended family. So the other day, I was going through some emails from 2011, looking at some stories, emails going between people about going to this prayer meeting, going to that worship meeting. Cara was on a lot of those emails. And I was just reflecting over the years and the things God has done. And I decided to invite a few people off those emails, as well as a few new people in our community who weren't part of those times, just to have some worship together. It's just something I felt I really wanted to do. And as I'm sitting there worshiping with this beautiful group of people, I felt the Lord drop into my heart the words, "It's not your faithfulness, it's mine. It's not your faithfulness, it's mine." And it kind of hit me a bit because I wasn't sitting there thinking, well, I've been so faithful, look at me, here I am. But God sees deeper than what we're sitting thinking, doesn't he? And there's something God's able to do, pulling something out of the course, something we may be thinking or believing that's not quite right. And what God was saying to me was so beautiful and so freeing. That's what we need to know. The discipline of the Lord is freeing. It's not condemning, it's freeing. And I felt so freed in that moment because I realized his name is the Faithful One. That's not my name. Thankfully, that is not my name because I can't live up to that. He is the Faithful One. And if he is the Faithful One, then that puts all of us in the same place, doesn't it? That we are not the faithful one. And so if you've walked in here today after many years of not having been in church or many years of not having acknowledged Jesus, and it's your first time here today, we are all in that same boat. We are all at the same place. And I've been reflecting on that parable of the workers who the one who came and started working right at the end of the day got the same pay as the ones before. And it's caused me to really reflect on that. I'm not quite landed on my thoughts for that yet. This isn't about that today. I'm just sharing. That's what I'm reflecting a lot on. But there's just something about the faithfulness of God belongs to him and not to us. So at the same time as planting out the mission church over the last year, Carl and I have had the privilege of becoming parents to the most beautiful little girls, delightful little girls. And we've been on a very big adventure. It has been fantastic, hasn't it? It's been wonderful. And in the run-up to all of this kicking off, I was finding a lot of people were saying to me, becoming a parent. So this part is about being a parent. Becoming a parent, becoming a mother makes you look so much more like Jesus. It makes you so much more like Jesus. And I thought, yes, because if there's one thing I want, it's to look more and more and more like Jesus. Isn't that what we're all after? Looking like Christ, Christ-likeness. I thought, this is fantastic. I'm going to be a mother. I'm going to look more like Jesus. And on the 11th of March, our very beautiful and very delightful girls moved in. And not so long after that, I found myself thinking, when's the part that I start looking more like Jesus? And I was quite inquisitive about this. And I thought maybe next week, because I'm a mum now. And then the next week comes, and then the week after that. And I'm thinking, I'm not looking more like Jesus. I'm thinking, actually, I'm looking a whole lot less like Jesus, because I'm having buttons pushed that I did not know were there for pushing. I'm saying things with words that I didn't know I had, with tones of voices that I did not know I had. And I've been a school teacher, so I thought I'd mastered every tone of voice there is to master. Welcome to parenthood. That thing about not getting a moment to go to the toilet, it's true. And I was quite disappointed by this. I'm not looking more like Jesus. And I was starting to feel a bit like, and then also in the run-up to all of this, not the short run-up to becoming a parent, but over many years, I've been watching other mums, and I've been hearing all these stories about, I feel so guilty. And I'm thinking, what's there to feel guilty about? Why feel guilty? I mean, the two just don't go hand in hand for me, being a mum, feeling guilty. And so in the run-up to this, over years, I'm like, I'm not going to be a mother who feels guilty because Jesus Christ paid for my guilt. So why should I feel guilty? But I still didn't understand what makes you feel guilty. So I was very hyper alert to all of this. And I'm like, I'm going to find out what it is that makes you feel guilty. And so the one night on a more turbulent evening, just before bedtime, we go off to bed, and I suddenly find myself, instead of singing the normal, turn your eyes upon Jesus, I'm suddenly singing, twinkle, twinkle, little star. I'm like, that's strange. Why am I singing that? I'm normally singing, turn your eyes upon Jesus. And I go out, and I'm like, boom, that's it. That's the guilt. I haven't been looking like Jesus. I haven't been Jesus to my family. And so instead of showing Jesus to them, I'm hiding Jesus from them. And there's this little voice going, hypocrite, hypocrite. You say you love Jesus. You're supposed to look like Jesus. But I'm singing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star instead of Turn Your Eyes Upon Jesus, because I can't talk about Jesus if I haven't been behaving too well, if I haven't been the perfect mother. And on thinking more and more about this, I just landed on the revelation of, if I am not the perfect mother, then I need to introduce my children to the one who is perfect. I cannot afford to hide the one who is perfect from my children to just be left with an imperfect mother. And so we have made a point of whatever happens, and it all happens before church, before worship, it all happens, but we've made a point, whatever happens, whatever we're feeling, we've got to get them there. We've got to get them to corporate worship. We have to sing songs of Jesus over them. We have to talk to them about Jesus. They have to see us doing something like giving a preach. They have to see us taking a stand for the one who is perfect. So a story about another mother of two daughters, actually a mother-in-law, is a lady called Naomi, who I want to mention today. Now, Naomi is found in the book of Ruth, and I've been reflecting a lot on Naomi and thinking to myself, I'm not sure why the book of Ruth isn't called Naomi, because the more I think about her and read the story and reflect on the story, the more I'm thinking, wow, what a woman, what a very beautiful lady. So the thing you need to know about Naomi is that she was depressed. Okay, so I'm going to read a verse here. She says, Ruth chapter 1, don't call me Naomi. Okay, Naomi means pleasant. Don't call me pleasant, she told them. Call me Mara. Mara means bitter, because the Almighty has made my life very bitter. I went away full, but the Lord brought me back empty. Why call me Naomi? The Lord has afflicted me. The Almighty has brought misfortune upon me. Okay, does she seem to be the shining light that people would normally want to follow? She is depressed, she is bitter, she has gone off with her husband to a foreign land to live amongst the Moabites. She's an Israelite, and while being there, her husband passed away and her two sons passed away, and she was left with her two daughters-in-law who were from the Moabites. They were foreigners to the Israelites. And so Naomi now at this point decides that she's going to travel back to Israel. She's going back to Bethlehem. And she's about to set off with her two daughters, and then she suddenly says, no, don't come with me. don't come with me. I've got nothing to offer you. And she begs him. She says, do not come with me. You stay. You go and find a life for yourselves. Okay, so can you hear a little bit of me, twinkle, twinkle, little star, coming through that? She's saying, don't come with me to Bethlehem, to the Israelites. You stay here. There's much more for you here. I'm just a depressed woman. And one of them chooses to do that, chooses to stay. Okay, that's also a key part, which one or two of you may need to hear today. The children get a choice for themselves. But one of them says, in no way is she staying behind. She is going to come with Naomi. And not only that, this lady's name is Ruth. Ruth clings. It says here, Ruth clung to her. She clung to her. Okay, now when did you last cling to an oppressed, bitter, depressed person to say, where you go, I'll go? That's what she goes on to say. She says, your people will be my people, and your God will be my God. Now, I can only think that Ruth is seeing something of a bigger picture through Naomi that she wants to hang on to. And what she says there is, it's audacious. It's very, very bold, because Ruth is a Moabite. She's not an Israelite. And this is before the Gentiles were invited into the story. And Ruth is very boldly saying, no, your people will be my people, and your God will be my God. And she chooses to walk back with Naomi. Now, not only is that a profound decision she made all on its own, but there's more to this. She didn't have protection, and she didn't have provision. So these two ladies, if you didn't have your husband with you in that day, you were not afforded provision or protection. And not only that, but she's part of the Moabites, who the Israelites did not like at all. Not at all. They were pretty much at war with each other. So her walking into Bethlehem was, in a sense, laying down her life, because she seemed to sense and see something bigger that she wanted to be a part of. So what happens next? Here's Naomi and Ruth walking back to the Israelites into Bethlehem. Let's just say it's a pathetic sight. It's two very, very vulnerable women walking with each other back, one foot in front of the other. It's a very pathetic sight. So what happens next? It says here, the two women went on until they came to Bethlehem. When they arrived in Bethlehem, the whole town was stirred because of them. And I'm thinking, stirred? Why? Let's read on. Let's see, why was the town stirred? And then it doesn't tell you why the town was stirred. Have you ever been reading the Bible and you're like, where's the next part? And it feels like God left a part out? Okay, that was this for me. It really felt as if he left the next part out. For me, it's really with the book of Jonah. If God could commission me to something, some kingdom commission, it would be to write Jonah chapter 5. Because he just ends in the middle of nowhere. He ends with a question. We don't get to find out the answer. But he's made it clear to me that the story is complete, so I won't be doing that. But I do have these moments, and this is one of these moments. I'm like, why were they stirred? And I'm thinking, is it because they looked so pathetic? You know how sometimes something looks so pathetic that it actually looks really bold? Or is it because of Naomi's status that she had before, and now suddenly she's not the same woman she'd been before? And I'm thinking of all these reasons, and the only thing I can really land on is Matthew 21, verse 10. Okay, are you listening? When Jesus entered Jerusalem, the whole city was stirred. When Naomi and Ruth entered Bethlehem, the people were all stirred. When Jesus entered Jerusalem, the whole city was stirred. There's something of a reflection. Naomi gets to be a reflection of a greater thing to come. She gets to play such a profound part, which is seemingly small, but in a much bigger picture. All of this in her very depressed state. Ruth, as they come into Bethlehem, Ruth gets a redeemer put in front of her, someone to protect her and provide for her, What's that a reflection of? Jesus Christ, our Redeemer, who protects us and provides for us. And not only that, but she gets to become the great-grandmother of King David. So she, the Gentile, gets pulled into the bloodline of Jesus Christ. That's profound. I mean, that's God breaking all his rules right there. Because we hadn't got to the Gentiles coming in yet at this point. So here you have two ladies, and I'm thinking, what did they do to become a part of this bigger, much bigger story? I'm like, they didn't stand up and do a preach at Kingsgate. They didn't feed people. They didn't start the Saturday morning healing rooms amongst the Moabites. They did nothing because they had nothing. I'm like, there's one thing they did. And for me, the picture is Naomi turning to her people, turning to Bethlehem, the house of bread, and moving towards it once again, which for me is a picture of our gaze, turning our gaze onto Jesus. If that's all we have in us, turning our gaze onto Jesus. Now, Jesus hadn't come to earth at that particular point, but Bethlehem for me represents the house of bread. It's where Jesus was born. It shows me a picture of these two ladies turning their gaze and moving towards their God. Okay? So they get to play this very significant part in the gospel story, not because of any strength they had of their own, not because of any talents they had of their own, not because of anything other than turning their gaze. And that's where Mark's word comes in. All I need to do is turn to him. We don't have to have something to bring forward. So you might be a parent yourself, and you might have those same thoughts of, hypocrites. I've got to hide Jesus. I can't go to church tomorrow. I can't behave like this and then go to church tomorrow. You might be all of us are spiritual parents, aren't we? In the workplace, maybe in our wider families, and we're thinking, I really want to see that person saved, but I've gone and acted like that again. I've gone and used that tone of voice again, and I better just tone down on, showing that Jesus is my light, Jesus is my source. You might be someone who's come out of lockdown, as many, many people have, who just have felt, disillusioned, down. I mean, like we all got, something really thrown at us, like life just changed. You might just feel a bit lost. Where is Jesus now? Okay, and that's okay. All we need to do is look at Jesus. You are in a church who do a lot of feeding other people. You might be sitting there thinking, that's great, they're doing all this feeding of other people. I'm the one who's being fed. Well, that's Naomi's story. She was that person. And look at the significance that God puts on her and on Ruth simply by turning their gaze onto him, onto Jesus, onto God, moving towards their people. So the encouragement is, wherever you are at, you're not the faithful one. You're not the perfect one. Is that a relief? It's a big relief for me. And so we can still show the people around us that our eyes are set on Jesus. One last verse that I want to leave you with, 1 Thessalonians 5:24. The one who calls you is faithful. He will do it. The one who calls you is faithful. He will do it. So I think in terms of just leaving a reflection with everyone, to whether that's for now or I don't know what happens, or that's going away with over the week, but just for the lies of the enemy to be exposed. I really felt that something was being exposed for people with, the word hypocrites, which you don't hear it in your ear. You're kind of feeling it, you're sensing it. So it's trying to expose that. And what is the place, the area in your life that the enemy is doing that? And where are the areas that you feel you are in need of hiding Jesus rather than carrying people along. Okay, so like Naomi, she ended up carrying Ruth along without even trying, carrying Ruth along into the bigger picture.